page number 52. Changes in agriculture. There were two major changes in agriculture around this time. One was the growing use of iron plowshares. This meant that heavy, clayey soil could be turned over better than with a wooden plowshare, so that more grain could be produced. Second, people began transplanting paddy. This meant that instead of scattering seed on the ground from which plants would sprout, saplings were grown and then planted in the fields. This led to increased production, as many more plants survived. However, it was back-breaking work. Generally, slave men and women, dasas and dasis, and landless agricultural laborers, kamakaras, had to do this work. Can you think why kings would encourage these changes? A closer look. A. Magadha. Find Magadha on map 4, page 49. Magadha became the most important Mahajanpada in about 200 years. Many rivers such as the Ganga and Son flowed through Magadha. This was important for A. Transport, B. Water supplies, C. Making the land fertile. Parts of Magadha were forested. Elephants, which lived in the forest, could be captured and trained for the army. Forests also provided wood for building houses, carts, and chariots. Besides, there were iron ore mines in the region that could be tapped to make strong tools and weapons. Magadha had two very powerful rulers, Bimbisara and Ajatasattu. Who used all possible means to conquer other Janpadas. Mahapadmananda was another important ruler. He extended his control up to the northwest part of the subcontinent. Rajagriha, present-day Rajgir in Bihar, was the capital of Magadha for several years. Later, the capital was shifted to Pataliputra, present-day Patna, more than 2,300 years ago. More than 2,300 years ago, a ruler named Alexander who lived in Macedonia in Europe wanted to become a world conqueror. Of course, he didn't conquer the world, but did conquer parts of Egypt and West Asia and came to the Indian subcontinent. Reaching up to the banks of the Bias. When he wanted to march further eastwards, his soldiers refused. They were scared, as they had heard that the rulers of India had vast armies of foot soldiers, chariots, and elephants. In what ways were these armies different from those described in the Rig Veda? A closer look, B. Vajji. While Magadha became a powerful kingdom, Vajji, with its capital at Vaishali, Bihar, was under a different form of government, known as Gana or Sangha. In a Gana or a Sangha, there were not one but many rulers. Sometimes, even when thousands of men ruled together, each one was known as a Raja. These Rajas performed rituals together. They also met in assemblies and decided what had to be done and how. Through discussion and debate. For example, if they were attacked by an enemy, they met to discuss what should be done to meet the threat. However, women, dasas, and kamakaras could not participate in these assemblies. both the Buddha and Mahavira. About whom you will read in chapter 6, belonged to Ganas or Sanghas. Some of the most vivid descriptions of life in the Sanghas can be found in Buddhist books. Gana is used for a group that has many members. Sangha means organization or association. Page number 54. This is an account of the Vajjis from the Digha Nikaya. A famous Buddhist book, which contains some of the speeches of the Buddha. These were written down about 2,300 years ago. Ajatasattu and the Vajjis. Ajatasattu wanted to attack the Vajjis. He sent his minister named Vasakara. To the Buddha to get his advice on the matter. The Buddha asked whether the Vajjis met frequently in full assemblies. When he heard that they did, he replied that the Vajjis would continue to prosper as long as they held full and frequent public assemblies. They met and acted together. They followed established rules. They respected, supported, and listened to elders. Vajji women were not held by force or captured. Chaityas, local shrines, were maintained in both towns and villages. Wise saints who followed different beliefs were respected and allowed to enter and leave the country freely. In what ways was the Vajji Sangha different from the other Mahajanpadas? Try and list at least 3 differences. Rajas of powerful kingdoms tried to conquer the Sanghas. Nevertheless, these lasted for a very long time, till about 1,500 years ago, when the last of the Ganas or Sanghas were conquered by the Gupta rulers, about whom you will read in chapter 10. Key words: Raja, Ashwamedha, Varna, Janpada, Mahajanpada, fortification, army, tax, transplantation, Gana or Sangha. Democracy. Page number 55. Elsewhere. Find Greece and Athens in your atlas. Around 2,500 years ago, the people of Athens set up a form of government, which was called a democracy, which lasted for about 200 years. All free men over the age of 30 were recognized as full citizens. There was an assembly that met at least 40 times a year to decide on important matters. All citizens could attend these meetings. Appointments for many positions were made through lottery. All those who wanted to be chosen gave their names, and then some were selected through lottery. Citizens were expected to serve in the army and the navy. However, women were not considered citizens. Also, many foreigners who lived and worked in Athens as merchants and craftspersons did not have rights as citizens. Besides, there were several thousand slaves in Athens who worked in mines, fields, households, and workshops. They too were not treated as citizens. Do you think this was a true democracy? Imagine you are peeping through a crack in the walls of the assembly of Vaishali. Where a meeting is in progress to discuss ways to deal with an attack by the king of Magadha. Describe what you might hear. Let's recall. 1. State whether true or false. A. Rajas who let the Ashwamedha horse pass through their lands were invited to the sacrifice. B. Charioteer sprinkled sacred water on the king. C. Archaeologists have found palaces in the settlements of the Janpadas. D. Pots to store grain were made out of painted grey ware. E. Many cities in Mahajanpadas were fortified. Page number 56. 2. Fill in the chart given below with the terms hunter-gatherers, farmers, traders, craftspersons, herders. Those who paid taxes. The Raja of the Mahajanpada. 3. Who were the groups who could not participate in the assemblies of the Ganas. Let's discuss. 4. Why did the Rajas of Mahajanpadas build forts? 5. In what ways are present-day elections different from the ways in which rulers were chosen in Janpadas? Let's do. 6. Were there any Janpadas in your state? If yes, name them. If not, name the Janpadas that would have been the closest to your state and mention whether they were to the east, west, north or south. 7. Find out whether any of the groups mentioned in answer 2 pay taxes today. 8. Find out whether the groups mentioned in answer 3 have voting rights at present. Some important dates. New kinds of Rajas about 3000 years ago. Mahajanpadas about 2500 years ago. Alexander's invasion, composition of the Digha Nikaya. About 2300 years ago. End of the Ganas or Sanghas. About 1500 years ago.